Process Excellence Restrictor Number 1. We have not learned from the past. Those who do not learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. George Santayana. Are you learning from the past? The simple fact that Lean Six Sigma has been one of the hottest 21st century performance improvement fads supports my findings that we have failed to learn from the past. Lean concepts have their foundation in the Toyota production system, which is over 40 years old. Shewhart and Deming both talked about Sigma as a measure of quality as it relates to variation even further back in time than that. And companies like General Electric, Motorola, and Allied Signal were using this approach in the 1990s. The most unfortunate thing about the manner in which this current fad is being sold is that we are not even learning from the most recent successes of the above three companies. Instead, most consultants and organizations have chosen to water down the approaches that these companies actually used into much less effective approaches. So, for example, there were ratios for how many black belts you should have in an organization, how many green belts you should have. These ratios have been modified. It's also my belief that absent of technology, which has contributed the most to business performance improvement over the last 40 years, we are not much better off than we were when the NBC white paper and broadcast, If Japan Can, Why Can't We?, helped ignite the total quality management movement in 1981. I can make some strong arguments that we have actually reached a point where technology is starting to hurt our process excellence pursuit efforts to a greater degree than it helps them, primarily because of the negative impact on workforce engagement and time for improvement levels that technology is having in many cases. In this book section, I will share with you some of the books, concepts, and skills that had a profound impact on my development as a process excellence facilitator. My intent in sharing this information is to help you see how we've failed to learn from the past and at the same time show you that there is a wealth of low-cost, effective knowledge out there that you can use in your own pursuit of process excellence. 30-plus years of improvement? The above timeline highlights some of the more significant performance improvement tools and approaches that have been popular at one time or another over the last 40 or so years. The degree to which a given tool will sound familiar to you largely depends on your age, the different types of roles you have played at work over your career, and the types of performance improvement approaches your employer has chosen to pursue during the life of the organization. The irony here is that had we truly taken these great approaches to heart and applied them, we would be in a much better position in our organizations today. Some of these approaches, such as open book management, are actually quite powerful, but could not survive once their faddish popularity declined. Others, such as total quality management and Covey's 7 Habits, sound quite familiar, but for one reason or another were labeled as ineffective or not good enough and subsequently shelved. Some are simply misunderstood. The Baldrige Performance Excellence Award is actually focused on big picture quality, such as performance excellence, as opposed to little picture quality, procedure compliance, and defect reduction, for example. But few people are aware of or have explored this distinction. Worse yet, they are unaware of how the awards criteria and process have continued to evolve and improve over the last 30-plus years. All of these approaches can make a difference in your organization if they are sincerely learned and applied. Some represent improvements over previous approaches. For example, the GE Six Sigma approach addressed two key shortcomings that were inherent with early quality circle attempts: letting teams pick their own projects and not providing enough team support. This change helped create a robust, priority-focused, and well-supported performance excellence strategy. Think about your own experiences. What have you learned from the past? And what have you missed out on that could really help your organization improve over time? Quality progress by the book and leadership progress by the book. On this page in the workbook, I've tried to list some of the top titles from my book collection on process excellence. In terms of quality process by the book, I always start with the Donald Dewar Quality Circle Member Manual, my first process improvement manual. Deming's work and the work of Tom Peters built upon what Donald Dewar introduced, and the Book of Kaizen came out in 1986. Peter Schultes provided focus to the team dynamics and what can be done to improve the way the group works together. Covey further advanced the behavioral side of relationships and showed people how it's all key to making life plans work. Peter Senge focused on systems thinking with his book, The Fifth Discipline. Meg Wheatley provided a new perspective on leadership with Leadership in the New Science. And then along came reengineering. And this Hammer and Champy book shifted things away from quality circles and towards a more less human approach to process improvement. Perhaps the most underappreciated book on this list is The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack. That is the book about open book management. It is not that hard to put in place, and it can have significant performance improvement potential. From a leadership progress by the book, there's so many books out there on leadership. One of the more simpler books is The 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard. One of the more traditional and well-known books is the book called Leaders by Nanis and Bennis. Tom Peters' passion for excellence also spoke of the need for leadership to be so powerful and important in making great customer satisfaction work. The Transformational Leader by Tichy also contributed to the way leadership was changing from a more hierarchical, authoritarian-based approach coming out of the 60s and 70s to one that was more softer and employee-focused in the 80s and in the 90s. I had the privilege of learning from Peter Block personally during this time, so I've got two of Peter's books on the list, The Empowered Manager and Stewardship. The leadership go-to book I give to people or recommend to people when they're trying to learn the basics of leadership is by Jim Kuzner and Barry Posner, and it's called The Leadership Challenge. Credibility builds on that book, but the Leadership Challenge really focuses on the 5 key traits of leadership, and it is statistically based. It isn't just their opinion. These are some great leadership books, some great places to start. Keep improving.